So 5 men have appeared in court today in connection with the murder of prominent Kenyan LGBTQI activist and designer Edwin Chiloba. The head of Eldoret South Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Steve Letsike, has requested more time for the court to gather evidence. The magistrate has ordered the 5 suspects to be remanded in custody for 21 days while police prepare their case. Chiloba's remains were found in a metal box last Tuesday near Eldoret town in Uasin Gishu County, where he ran his fashion business. His murder has drawn widespread condemnation from various rights groups. Chiloba will be laid to rest on Saturday. Well, then, activists in Kenya are calling for heightened efforts to protect members of the LGBTQI community following the murder of Edwin Chiloba. Commonwealth Equity Network chairperson Steve Letsike joins us now for more on this story. Good evening to you, Steve. Grateful for your time. One of the more chilling details on this case is that among the people arrested is a former lover of Edwin's who's in fact accused of committing the murder.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, it's really sad news that we are where we are, where we always have to deal with gender-based violence. We have to deal with hate crime, but more so, we also have to deal with intimate partner violence. In this case where Edwin has experienced a brutal murder, which potentially can be any of these, because until the Kenyan officials actually collect enough evidence to really get the suspect responsible for this brutality, we can point out to all the suspects that have been involved. And unfortunately, this may be potentially intimate partner violence as well.
And for someone to have been killed in the way in which Edwin was, and then their body stuffed into a metal box and basically dumped on a roadside, speaks to the levels to which we're seeing an escalation in the types of violence, isn't it? Targeting people who identify as queer, be it intimate partner violence or even in hate crimes.
No, indeed. I mean, look, we have to actually go deep in, dismantling the levels of violence, experienced by LGBTI people. I think one of which you have to understand the rooted homophobia and transphobia in Kenya that already exists. And I think we are really, looking at times where we can really, decriminalize a homosexual act, where people can also be free and be who they are, and not lead life of either, secrecy in any way. And neither did Edwin lead life of secrecy. He was a leading activist in Kenya. But now when you look at the deep-rooted elements here, is that potentially if you have a lover who either, hides or who really, shies away from the public, from their own intimate relationship, and maybe they are caught and they really are dealing with the level of internalized homophobia themselves. Some of these may look into that. But additionally to that, the kind of violence that happens with discrimination, stigma, and homophobia in community also may lead to some of these challenges that we're dealing with on a daily basis. But it is no excuse where violence or attack or even murder is taking place.
So what needs to happen to ensure that in a country that has anti-gay laws, none of that sort of seeps through and hinders the possibility of justice in this case, because Edwin Chiloba's family has said they want justice for their child?
Indeed. I mean, look, in this case, where justice is for Edwin, not only just for Edwin, but also for all LGBTI people who continues to be really victimized. Edwin's family, and we are really happy that they are speaking out, the support LGBTI community is experiencing there. But this should not be the case. I think the justice speaks to the levels of freedom, access, the levels of equality in the constitutional rights that must be enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya. But at the same time, where lives must be protected, it is not right for anybody to fear for their life in a region like ours, where we've actually really advance the agenda of freedom in our lifetime. But at the same time, that freedom is actually limited to a certain population. We do want the justice for Edwin, and many of us who stand in solidarity with the Kenyan community will speak out. We will call out on the government of Kenya to stand up, and we are actually commending even the police officials of Kenya for arresting the suspect and acting swiftly on this matter.
You touched on it earlier, the issue of intimate partner violence, the anti-gay laws, and how those then come together, don't they, in a country such as Kenya, even in South Africa, in fact, where there aren't anti-gay laws, there isn't there a veil that sort of silences people who are suffering from intimate partner violence, because people will say, well, it's violence between two men, so it cannot be treated as a matter of gender-based violence based on gender.
Look, in fact, intimate partner violence is the biggest epidemic we are dealing with, in response to gender-based violence anyway, in South Africa and across the globe. Here, Access Chapter 2, is also dealing with responding to cases of intimate partner violence, particularly amongst lesbian couples, gay couple, even with trans or heterosexuals, for that matter. The research that was done by other organizations and institutions like Medical Research Council had revealed the extent of violence, intimate partner violence, that goes to up to 50% of people of violence, of attacks of gender-based violence, go to that level of intimate partner violence. Now, this can't be right. President Ramaphosa launched an NSP that says that let's eradicate gender-based violence. And we actually want this NSP to be implemented, the resources that leads to prevention. We don't want to respond to intimate partner violence where people die. One death is more than enough. We want to protect people. People must live and must never fear their partners who claim to love them, but yet they violate them. Those perpetrators do not deserve to be amongst us in the community. They deserve to rot in jail and to actually face the might of the law. And neither LGBTI people are immune to be held accountable. We will not tolerate violence against any person, intimate partners, even intimate partner violence, even within the LGBTI community.
Steve Letsike, good to have your time. Thank you.